Create with Fran Sydney. Hello everyone and welcome to Create with Friends. Today we are going to talk about something really useful. We're continuing our discourse about food and how it affects our mental health and vice versa, how what goes on in our mind can affect the way we tackle diets. And last week we really made these connections about how we're building up our brain with the right cells by eating the right food. But what about the emotions? Are we sometimes eating our emotions? So this week I really had this idea to ask all my colleagues in the RTT world, in the hypnosis world, to say, okay, let's talk about success stories, okay? People who were not able to lose weight and then after having a session, they realized what was holding them back. Was it a physical reason? Was it an emotional reason? Was it a combination? And so we discovered that more than just the diet, sometimes it's really our mind what is behind our problems with weight. And it was absolutely fascinating to read these stories that I've been given permission to share. Of course, all the names have been changed, and we will only keep the name of a practitioner, so nobody's going to be, let's say, identified by anything in particular. So if you have been wondering why the weight is just there, it's not going to shift, maybe you want to help me to do a little bit of an investigation. I'm going to talk very briefly about 8 women and 1 man, and I'm going to ask you to start wondering, what do they have in common? Okay, all the names of 8. So we're starting with person number 1. Let's call her Helen. Helen snacks every night. She just cannot fall asleep. She cannot afford it. So she keeps eating and she knows how to lose weight and she does eventually lose weight. But when a man gives her attention, she gains all her weight back. And so she feels depressed and she has emotional eating patterns. What's going on with her? Jenny eats a lot of ice cream, but she doesn't know why. She just keeps eating and eating and eating. She wants to be thin, but she just can't. Romy, she eats when she feels low and she's very critical about herself and the fact that she cannot change. And let's talk about Amy. Amy cannot pass a bakery without stopping and buying as many sweets as she can afford, maybe some cakes, and she has to eat them all. She doesn't know why, so she can't lose weight. Hannah eats very healthy, but she cannot lose weight, even when she's eating very, very little food. And let's talk about Judy. Judy's very slender, but has a lot of tummy fat, and she cannot shift it. Whatever she does, she feels like there's a weight right there. But she's healthy. She's been to the doctor. There's nothing wrong. What's going on with her? How about Olivia? Olivia has a few issues with her body image, and these issues have been going on for 30 years, and so she cannot work out why her weight is not shifting, and she's very frustrated. And the final woman in my list is Maggie. Maggie knows exactly how to lose weight, and she has plenty of success, but after losing 20 kilos, she hits a plateau. So no matter what she does, she cannot lose any more weight, and she really wants to, but she can't. And the last is going to be a man. This is called, let's say, George, and he weighs 180 kilos. He finds a lot of reasons to eat a lot. He can't stop eating and feels very negative, very unmotivated. I wonder what you're thinking now. Could it be you? Could it be me? So what's going on with these people? They're all trying, but they seem to be unable to control their eating. They don't understand why the weight is going up and down in such a way, or maybe it's not going down at all, why they cannot stop the eating, and why the self-confidence that they have is very, very low. So these people could be our brother, our sister, they could be me, they could be you. I just want to share this story so that we add another facet to this obesity epidemic that we are experiencing in all industrialized countries. So when we are being overweight, this is a lot more than just eating food. It's often about bearing or responding to emotions that we feel at a subconscious level. So let's see in detail what happens, and I'm going to go through every case with a therapy notes from my colleagues. And as I want to remind you, all the names are false. I'm not going to tell you the right country, so there is no way you can identify these people. But maybe you can identify yourself and say, yes, this is how I feel. But I will tell you the real name of a therapist, and I want to thank them so much for their help, because without them, this episode wouldn't be there. And I just want to help you to see if there is a pattern in your life that needs to change. Okay, so let's go with woman number 1. Her name is Helen, and she's a wonderful woman in the middle age, and she has worked with a therapist called Annabella Zaydar. I hope the pronunciation is correct. So this woman, Helen, was very depressed, and she was emotionally eating instead of eating for hunger, and she had this kind of pattern of being able to shed the weight, but as soon as she had any attention from a man, she would promptly put all the weight back on. And so it was really frustrating for her. Of course, she was snacking late into the night, and she was stopping herself from falling asleep. For her, going to sleep was not safe. Therefore, she had an RTT session, Rapid Transformational Therapy, which included CBT coaching, all the psychotherapy techniques, NLP, and of course, hypnosis. And during the session, she was able to regress to this feeling of when she really wanted to have this food always with her in the night to keep her safe. And it turned out that when she was a very young girl, a person in her life would come to her bedroom and sexually abuse her, and this happened from the age of 6 onwards. Because of that, she was able to understand what happened, reframe herself with a little child that was still in her crying for safety, and she stopped all this midnight snacking. She felt safe enough, and she was able to shed all the weight that was in excess. What a wonderful story of healing, and well done to Annabella Zaydar for this. A second client of Annabella was called Jenny, and she had this habit of eating loads and loads of ice cream. And during her session, what came out was that she was just trying to recreate memories of visiting the Dairy Queen with her dad, and she just loved her dad so much. And sometimes in her life she had a day when she felt disconnected, and she wanted to feel this kind of connection, and she had an anchor with this food. It was ice cream. And so when she ate lots of ice cream, she was just trying to have this connection inside. So as you can see, it was very emotional. It was nothing about wanting to eat junk food or being unhealthy. She just wanted connection. Now, another therapist called ONeill, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly, talked to me about her client called Romy. Romy was very specific. She ate as a way to be close to her dad, just like we saw before with Jenny, but also she wanted to become very much invisible to bullies. What happened to her? She had internalized the bullies' voices that were judging her, and her appearance was something that she was criticizing now. She was the bully voice in her own mind. She was criticizing herself because she was unable to change. And then during the session, she realized that this was the bully's voice. It was not her voice, and therefore she was able to finally separate this voice from her own voice, so they would not affect her anymore. And now Romy is feeling absolutely free from all those emotional forces that used to push her to eat like in a compulsion every time she felt down. And what happens to her during the session was very liberating, and now she's free to choose what she wants to eat, and she chooses to eat food that are nourishing for our body. And also she's now making this connection and say, all right, look, when I eat junk food, I feel tired, I feel heavy. So I choose not to do that to myself, because how good I feel when I'm actually out in nature, when I feel that I want to eat very fresh, nice food. And so she's decided to do hiking and camping and things that will take her back to nature, where she's feeling great. So as you can see, there is so much freedom when you understand what is the force behind that eating. Instead of making yourself feel guilty, just ask yourself, why this is happening? What am I looking for? And let's go now to a Switzerland-based therapist, and her name is Jenny Schwartz. And she had a client called Amy who went to see her to have an RTT session because she had to eat everything that was sweet, for example, cakes, everything else. Not only that, if she passed a bakery where they had these amazing cakes and and sweet pastries, whatever, she would just have to stop. She had to buy whatever and she had to eat them. And of course, she felt she was fat, but actually she wasn't at all fat. So she had a couple of sessions. And then she said, what I really want to do is to be able to eat a little of them and just leave the rest for another day. And she was able to do exactly what she wanted. Why? What was going on in her mind? The root cause of her issue was that she had linked this cake to the kind of feeling that you are comfortable, you're loved. And this feeling came from when she was very little and her grandmother was with her. And she wanted to link this cake only subconsciously. It wasn't a decision that she said, okay, I'm going to eat cake so that my grandma. All this happened before she realized it was part of her body programming. And so during the sessions, she learned how to accept herself, how to love herself, and how to feel wonderful and to feel enough. And so that she didn't need to eat a cake or eat cookies to feel loved. So she was able to have success, to lose the weight, to feel a lot more confident with herself. And what really helped her was the recording after the session. She really needed this guidance and wanted to hear this voice telling her how good she was, and the root cause connected with her knowing that she's not the little girl anymore. That was good for her to remember that. So this was a case of obsessing eating that had nothing to do with liking sugar or being addicted to sugar or nothing. In fact, she wasn't even overweight, but it was so good for her to keep a love and affection for her grandmother and keep a love for the cakes, but detach the emotional feeling and be able to eat just a little bit, which is good for everyone. Let's talk about Sinead Dohan. I hope this is pronounced properly. And last week she had a client called Hannah. Hannah ate very healthy, but she could not lose any weight, even when she was eating very, very little. And it turned out during the session that when she grew up, she was in a home where food was very scarce and the fridge was empty very often. But when she went to see her grandparents, they were showering her with love through endless food supplies. So that's where she felt, right, that's the right place, and I am loved here, and I have lots of food. And in some way, she believed that if she became skinny, she could die. And there was a very big fear in her mind. Food is so scarce. I'm not gonna survive. I have to eat. And the only way I can eat is be showered lots and lots of food with my grandparents. It was a very complex situation, wasn't it? And when she was having the session, something very physical happened to her. She kind of felt air being released in her tummy like a balloon. And she was cradling this air like it was her safe house all through the session. It was interesting to work with her, according to the therapist, because she's actually surrounded by food all the time because she runs a very successful catering company. But isn't it amazing? When we are young, we look at the food, we look at emotions, we mix everything, we make conclusions that might be very useful when we are young. But as we grow up, we need to ditch those beliefs, and then we can go ahead and move on with our life. Still from the same therapist, there was a story of Judy. Judy was very nice and slender, but she was unable to shift any weight on her tummy. It was very interesting. The tummy was there, maybe it was a high glycemic index, maybe she had a problem with digesting. No, it was just everything was normal, the values were normal, but the tummy had this weight. And during the session, she went into regression in hypnosis, and it turned out that when she was very young, she heard her mom saying that when she was pregnant, she was wanting to abort her. And she had this vivid image that came to her. She was like a baby, maybe 1-2 years old. She was sitting on the floor, feeling like a dead weight. And to herself, like a young person, she thought that she was the weight. She was a burden on the family. She was not wanted. And she needed this weight to weigh her down. It was fascinating what she came up with. And when she had this amazing light bulb moment, it was very interesting. And she was stuck to this floor, she couldn't move. She was only 2 years old and she thought, wow, I can't move, I'm very heavy, I am a weight. And she wasn't a heavy woman, but she always felt the weight on her tummy was keeping her down. And when the session was over, she said to the therapist, I'm just euphoric, I feel amazing. And I think so, because this belief that she had built when she was very young was not useful anymore. Maybe her parents said we wanted to abort, but then they raised her, they were happy to have a girl. But of course this had remained in her subconscious mind since she was very, very tiny. So always be careful how we talk to our children, even when they're probably not hearing us, because sometimes they might make some conclusions that are going to be very unhealthy for them later in life. Ping Ong is another therapist, and she had a client called George who weighed 180 kilos. And it was very interesting to read his testimonial because he was using food for a way to feel comforted, a way to celebrate, a way to relieve his boredom, or when he was feeling sad. And his parents were very good, very supportive, but food was always at the center of everything that they did, every event they had. He wasn't sure how to regulate his eating. I just want to read his testimonial that is straight from Instagram. So here he is. He says, I didn't know about hypnosis, but I was recommended to do it, and I was so surprised to become so relaxed and to go deeper into my thoughts so that I could communicate with my mind and put away all the negativity and inject positivity of what I really want to achieve, which was to lose weight and to get motivation to exercise again. I learned about my past desires and bad eating habits and kept me feeling very down and making myself want to give up with life. After the session, I gained back my self-confidence and I knew I had to make a change. I've lost weight bit by bit. I can fit into my old trousers and old shirts, which were so tight. And now I live with a positive note every day and I try to put away all the negativity. I eat healthy. And it's been 2 months, I've lost a lot of weight, I still have much to go, but I'm so happy. And I would recommend Ping to all my family and to all my friends. And my congratulations, you've done so well in really going down to see what was going on there, instead of just feeling guilty, feeling unmotivated, say, oh, this is gonna go forever. No, just track it down, see what is actually going on here. I want to do something. And it was very simple. Just go down to the cause of this and change a pattern of thinking. It was amazing. Well done. And then there was another client still with Ping Ong, and I think it was called Olivia. And there was a very interesting client because she just got so much positive attention for eating well. Still working with Ping, there is a client number 2, which is Olivia. Olivia feels very, very big. And because of that, she feels very special, very powerful. She has a lot of good, positive attention in her family when she eats well. But at the same time, although she feels powerful because she's so much bigger, she's also feeling, oh, I can't fit into my clothes. Since I was a girl, I was shamed, I was bullied. People criticized me because I was so fat. And in her words, I just couldn't believe in myself. I had, such a low self-esteem, and my body image issues were very, very great. I was looking now here at her testimonial. She was saying she had just 1 RTT session. That's amazing. So we tapped into parts that have been tucked away and show me as an inner child all these wounds that have led to body image issues which I had for 30 years. After the session, I felt liberated and also felt tired physically, emotionally. There was so much to process. And since my session, I've been listening to my body's needs. My self-confidence has improved. I can feel my mindset is shifting. All these years of conditioning and all these stories that I listened to and I told myself they'll just shed away. I feel a lot lighter. I'm not carrying or holding on to this baggage anymore. And I listen to my audio. It's been 3 months and I feel so much more motivated when I need a little bit of boost. So I'm very, very happy, and I know the RTT is so good to achieve deep healing for physical issues and for emotional issues. And I feel that she got really well there with secondary gain. If I am big, I'm also powerful, I'm also liked. Isn't it interesting how our mind can work? The last therapist that I want to talk about is Sivan Peret Sharvit. And he or she, I can't remember, had a client called Maggie who knew exactly how to eat, and she actually lost 20 kilos. That was doing really well. But then she hit a plateau. So no matter what she did, she was not able to lose a further kilo. And she couldn't keep her eating under control as she really wanted, logically thinking. So every Monday she would recommit to lose the weight, but then by lunchtime it was all out of the window. So it was very frustrating. And so she decided to have a session with RTT. And she discovered that she had always felt in her family, when she was growing up, she was the black sheep. She was different. She didn't feel like I belonged to this family. And in her family, especially with that side, I think they were like Mediterranean people, and they like to eat. These are all very big people, very robust, and they have a lot of weight in there. And somehow, when she was young, she formed this belief that when she was bigger, when she was carrying this excess weight, then her family liked her. Then she was safe, she was connected, she was, of course, loved. And so during the session, she was able to let go of this belief and found it really easy to go back to her healthy habits to continue to lose weight, because now she didn't need anymore to please her family by hurting herself. So my conclusions after listening to all these stories, and I'm sure you guys have a lot more to tell me, but I came up with 4 things that just stand out. One is the beliefs. These beliefs that we form when we are very, very young. Maybe the reason why we cannot lose weight today. Maybe it's the reason why we can't stop eating the wrong food or eating too much or too often. And so these beliefs are hidden where? In the subconscious mind. They make our programs, they make our bodies. So we're not consciously aware of them. We just tend to be eating. And this is exactly where hypnosis can help, because it makes the familiar unfamiliar and vice versa. So we are rewiring the brain, stopping those unhelpful patterns. And instead of repeating the old habits, we create a new one, and we unearth why we were doing the wrong things. My second observation is really about the secondary gain. The secondary gain is what we are gaining by keeping the problem. And if you think about it, having an additional layer of fat, more than we need, can be seen by the subconscious mind very simply like a protective shield. From what? Maybe from male attention, maybe from abuse, maybe from stress, maybe from anything else, even having intimacy with your husband. It could be something that just stops you doing something. And our subconscious mind is so smart at working out all this stuff without even telling us. So what happens when we feel that we're eating but we can't stop? Maybe we need to feel bigger. Maybe that will make us feel empowered because we can, sit on somebody and crush them. What is it? What's going on? So this secondary gain from third condition is very important. It always comes out. If I eat, I feel like that, and this will make me feel like that. And then you keep going and asking yourself, what happens if I stop this? Oh, I will lose my shield, I will lose importance, I will not be loved. And that really takes us to point number 3. Because, eating food in good company, feeling great, is a normal thing, isn't it? But it can become anchored to this feeling of being loved and be happy when we are really young. And this happened to many of my clients. They said, I eat every time I feel low, because it reminds me when I was young we had celebration. So when we feel down, we might go for food, but we're actually seeking for love. We're seeking for attention. So it's always useful to ask ourselves, how am I feeling now that I want to reach for the chocolate bar? What am I really looking for? And this question is so useful, even if you're, for example, a smoker or you drink alcohol. What are you actually looking for? I'm sure you don't like grapes so much. what you really want is something to lift you up, something to feel better, something to feel happy, just like you felt when you were young, and these lovely foods were offered to you as a celebratory thing, or maybe to reward you, which I think it's a pattern that for some people become very, very unhealthy. And let's go to the final point. This is the case for some people, that when we are big, we feel safe. So why do we feel safe? Because we need to belong to our tribe. We can be in the Hawaii, where it's very good to be big. We could be Mediterranean, Spanish, Greek, Italian. We could be North African. It doesn't matter. If we are in a group where being big is in the norm, then we want to be like them, because in certain cultures, when you eat a lot and you put on this weight, this is extra weight, you look powerful, and people make the assumption, oh, he's not poor like us, he must be very wealthy. And when you are normal or slender, you give this message, oh, he has financial problems, he cannot eat enough food. So it's very important to feel this sense of belonging. And when this doesn't happen, we feel like we're not part of that family. So these are only 4 observations, and you might come out with a lot more observations, because maybe your case is completely different. So when we are repeating these self-defeating actions and we do not know why, we seem to be unable to stop, then there's a time to get in touch and get a session sorted out, a consultation that is always free, so you can create that life that you always wanted. By doing what? By finding and then shifting those old beliefs, by making room for new beliefs, creating empowering beliefs, so that food becomes what it is meant to be, which is to nourish yourself, nourish your body, and to be healthy. It's nothing else. Food shouldn't be given the importance that we give it all the time, because for some of us, food becomes an emotional affair. And if you want to create the life that you want, which is the theme of all my podcasts, the first thing you want is to be able to eat. We do not eat our emotions. The emotions we tackle, we put them to the ground, we open them up, we shred them, and we keep the ones that we want. And then we're going to be more successful in losing weight, or keeping the weight down, or even in stopping those unhealthy patterns that make us eat the wrong stuff and make us feel tired, even if we're not overweight, but we might feel that we're not really healthy, not very alert. And so this is it for today. We had almost 30 minutes of talking about how food can be connected to so many emotions that it creates a problem. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and maybe you want to make some comments, share it, like with other people, and maybe write a review if you think that there is something interesting in these topics. Let me know. And if you have ideas for other topics that are connected to mindfulness, to using mind hacks to get better, to create the very, very balanced and good life we all want, just do something about it. Tell me, communicate with me, because I'm always here, happy to hear from all you guys. And I thank you so much. We have now over 2,000 downloads, so that's very good for this program after 65 episodes. And we're going higher and higher every week. Thank you so much for being with me, and I'll talk to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye. You have listened to Create with Fran Sidney.